Hi, both. Thanks for joining us today on our Business Gurus channel, where we will be discussing key business topics to help students grasp the most important elements of their course in preparation for their exams and future career. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place that takes complex data sets and really turns them into usable insights fast. Today, we're focusing on something fundamental, understanding business performance, but purely through, well, the numbers, quantitative data. Our mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to go beyond just, defining quantitative data. We're really jumping into the strategic side, how businesses take these raw numbers, make them visual, and critically, how that whole process forces objective decisions. Big ones. If you want to be properly informed about performance, you really need to speak this language.
Exactly. The material we've looked at really centers on turning numbers into, well, into action. The real value here isn't just counting things. It's about enabling quick, unbiased decision-making. We're going to explore how a number on a chart can cut through the noise and force a real conversation about what's important.
Okay, let's unpack this strategically. So
Yeah.
quantitative data, it's about quantity, right?
Yeah.
Pure and simple. It's the measurable stuff that counts, the dollars, the number of customers, answering how many or how much.
And that measurability, that's precisely why it's so powerful in business. It's not just, counting for counting's sake. It's an objective diagnostic tool. Think about it. Resources are always limited, right? And internal debates, they can get subjective. Quantitative data helps cut through that. It provides a quantifiable metric, a cost-benefit analysis. It's the proof. It shows, say, the cost of losing customers or the revenue boost from a new feature. It tells you where the money needs to go.
Right. So if quantitative data is the numerical proof, the evidence, then the challenge becomes communicating it effectively. I mean, a giant spreadsheet isn't much use to a CEO who has 5 minutes, is it? How do you take that flood of numbers and make it instantly actionable?
That's exactly where visualization comes in. It's like a language. Decision makers, they just don't have time to wade through raw data. They need to spot patterns instantly. So quantitative data gets standardized into formats we can actually digest. Charts, graphs, statistics, percentages. These formats are designed to work with how we see things, to show scale, distribution, trends, fast.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the variety. Different business questions seem to need different visual tools. Some visualizations focus more on, say, distribution, while others are really about momentum, right?
Let's start with distribution.
Yeah.
When a business needs to understand how things are split up, resources, effort across different products or applications or markets, we often see tools like stacked bar charts or pie charts.
The stacked bar chart, that's a really good example for comparing things side by side against the same measure. You're looking at layers of performance all at once. It shows relative contribution immediately. You can see, like, product X brings in 3 times the revenue of product Y in this category without doing any math in your head. Quick comparison, quick insights for allocation.
Absolutely. The stacking lets you see the parts relative to the whole and also relative to each other. It's a snapshot, shows the current distribution. But distribution, while it's vital for knowing where things stand now, strategically, you often need to understand momentum. Where are things going? And that brings us to the line graph, which arguably is often the most compelling visualization for strategy.
Momentum is definitely key. That line graph tracking performance over years or even months. That's where our brains really kick in, isn't it? We're wired to see trends, to extrapolate. You're not just seeing the past, you're almost visually predicting the future from that line's direction.
Precisely. If you see a line graph, say user acquisition just spiking in Q3,
Yeah.
that visual immediately demands you ask why. What drove that and how do we double down on it? Conversely, if you see a slow, maybe 3-year decline in market share on that line, well, that's not just history. That's a flashing red light. It screams that the current way of doing things isn't working. The visual trend forces you to think about intervention. Now,
Okay, so we have stacked charts for that comparative distribution, line graphs showing momentum over time. What about the third main type? The one that often mixes raw numbers and percentages for quick impact, the pie chart.
the pie chart. It's fundamentally about showing proportion, often used for highlighting priorities. In the examples we looked at, you might see a breakdown of data. Let's imagine it's about where software bugs are coming from. The real strength of the pie chart isn't necessarily the raw numbers themselves, but how clearly it shows dominance. Which slice is biggest?
That's a good point. If the analysis shows one specific area, maybe chatting libraries, like in the example, accounts for almost half, say 48% of all the bugs. That visual slice is just undeniable. It clearly shows the scale of the issue there.
It is. The percentage gives you the precision, sure.
No.
But the strategic insight comes from seeing the relative size. You don't even need to read the specific numbers 93, 45, 31 to know, roughly, where maybe 80% of your fixing efforts need to go first. The chart basically hands you your priority list. No guesswork needed on where to start.
Okay, but wait. Let me push back slightly here. Based on what we just said about momentum versus distribution,
Yeah.
isn't focusing too much on that one big slice of the pie, the static distribution, potentially a strategic trap? Doesn't the line graph actually give us a more vital insight because it shows whether the total number of bugs is trending up or down over time, regardless of today's distribution?
That's a really great point. Excellent friction there. You've hit on a critical limitation of static snapshots. A pie chart only shows you the what is right now. The line graph gives you the context, the what's happening over time.
Hmm.
A good analyst knows you need both. Absolutely. If the pie chart shows 48% of bugs are in one area, fine. That's your immediate tactical focus. But if the line graph shows the overall bug count is dropping dramatically month after month, maybe the urgency isn't quite as high as if that total count was actually skyrocketing, even if the proportions in the pie stayed the same.
Ah, okay. That makes total sense. So the quantitative data drives the decision, yes, but it's the combination of different views, different visualizations that gives you the strategic depth you need.
Absolutely right. Which circles us right back to our third section, decisions driven by data. When a business makes a choice, fund this, kill that, enter a new market, the justification, the anchor, is in these numerical, visualized insights.
Let's make that even more concrete. How do these visuals directly translate into resource allocation? Take that line graph example again, the one showing a sharp market share decline over 3 years. That picture isn't just data, is it? It's a strategic demand for action.
It really acts as a catalyst,
Yeah.
a powerful one. If the trend is negative, that visual immediately triggers the next step, the qualitative investigation. The numbers told you the what we're losing share. The urgent question for the teams then becomes why. This forces accountability and it forces resources to be diverted. You have to pull people off other things to figure out and fix that declining trend the numbers showed you.
And flipping that, looking at positive action. If a stacked bar chart suddenly shows that some application, maybe one everyone thought was minor, is now contributing surprisingly high revenue in a new region, well, that visualization instantly justifies putting more marketing money there or maybe more engineering support for that specific application in that region.
Exactly. It formalizes the strategic bets. When the data visualization is clear, it removes ambiguity about where the next investment should probably go. The clearer the chart, usually, the more obvious the decision path becomes. And this is why fluency in this visual language is so essential for you, the listener. You need to be able to glance at a chart and instantly start translating that visual pattern into a potential action plan, whatever your role, finance, marketing, operations, development.
Okay, so to place all this in the bigger picture of business intelligence, maybe we should quickly touch on some related terms. The ones that sort of define the ecosystem this quantitative data lives in. We're talking about the big concept of data itself, the idea of trends, and that key distinction between quantitative and qualitative.
Right. So data, that's just the raw material.
Yeah.
Information, facts, figures. But the visualization of our numerical data, the charts, the graphs, their main job is often to reveal trends. We're usually not just measuring one point in time. We're assessing the direction of travel. Is performance improving? Is the market shrinking? The trend is often the key strategic takeaway from the visualization.
And as we've kind of hinted at, today's deep dive has been laser focused on the numerical side, the quantitative. That's the count, the measurement, the dollars, the percentages, the how much.
But no decision really happens in a vacuum, does it? That's where qualitative data becomes crucial. The quantitative chart might tell you that market share dropped 15%. That's the what. But the qualitative data, things like customer interviews, feedback, maybe focus groups, just anecdotal evidence that often tells you why they're leaving. They're two distinct pieces, but they're really inseparable for a complete picture, a full diagnosis. You use the quantitative chart to spot the problem and prioritize where to look. Then you often need that qualitative story to figure out the right solution.
So for you listening, the key really is recognizing that quantitative data forms that foundation for prioritization, being able to read a chart correctly. That's the difference between an informed strategic move and, well, just guessing.
Yeah, if we boil down our deep dive today, the main takeaway is pretty clear. Quantitative data is objective, numerical information, numbers. It gets strategically translated into visual formats, charts, graphs, stats to make things like scale, distribution, and momentum instantly understandable. And this visual language, it's indispensable. It informs business strategy. It drives resource allocation. It helps move organizations from just opinions to actual data-backed action.
Absolutely. So we've established Quantitative data drives decisions. Visualization makes that data compelling, undeniable even. So here's a final thought for you to take away and mull over. If every major business decision leans on this quantitative data, and the goal is often to convince stakeholders, maybe skeptical ones, which type of chart or graph do you think carries the most psychological weight? Is it the urgent momentum you see in a steep line graph? Or is it the sheer undeniable weight of a huge percentage slice in a pie chart showing where the biggest issue or opportunity lies? Think about how the format itself shapes conviction.
Thanks to both of you for joining us today. You've been listening to the Business Gurus. Let's now hand it over to you. What further questions do you have based on what we've discussed so far? Leave a comment and we'll get back to you right away. If you haven't already, hit that follow for more business tips.